Good afternoon. Welcome on in to another episode of From Day One. And today, courtesy of our good friend over Law Talk Mike, prison really isn't the place you want to be.
That's when because it has a hissing sound. And when they said, they all like, did we hear that? And they all, when the door was popped, they all rushed out the door onto the catwalk where Mr. Sims is still on the catwalk naked. And then that's when they all piled on top of him and started attacking him.
Naked. Mike, what the fuck have you brought me today? Your Honor, you're muted.
All right. Since the Clayton County Magistrate Court preliminary hearing calendar, today is February 20, 2023. This is the State of Georgia versus Joel Lee Gilliam, warrant number 2023 CW 50117, and also the State of Georgia versus Jawan Kelly, warrant number.
Okay, so this is a preliminary hearing for Milli Vanilli there, bottom center.
Milli Vanilli,
They
Mike.
look kind of harmless here, but as you'll see, they're not.
Number 2023 CW 50116. All parties are present and represented each by counsel. Mr. Gilliam by Mr. Tolles and Mr. Kelly by Ms. Robinson. The state is represented by Ms. Freeman. Ms. Freeman, you can proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Lieutenant Brock, would you raise your right hand, please? Do you swear and affirm that the testimony about to provide in the matters of State of Georgia versus Joel Gilliam and State of Georgia versus Jawan Kelly will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
I do.
You can lower your hand. Please tell us your name and how you're employed.
I'm Lieutenant Brock. I'm employed with the Clayton County Sheriff's Office over the Internal Affairs and CID Division, and I've been here since March 2021.
Lieutenant, were you working with the Clayton County Sheriff's Office on January 4th of 2023?
I was.
On that particular date, did you investigate a reported stabbing that occurred inside the jail?
Yes, ma'am.
In this particular case, was the victim a Joshua Sims?
Yes, ma'am.
Was Mr. Sims an inmate in the jail at the time?
Yes, ma'am, he was.
Please tell us what you learned, what occurred to Mr. Sims from your investigation.
So, this investigation occurred on January the 5th of 2023 at approximately 10:14 a.m. And I was notified by Major Talbert about a stabbing incident that occurred in Housing Unit 8, Section 5. All inmates, including Mr. Sims, were housed there in that housing unit at that time. And during this incident, it started off with several suspects that's involved in the incident. One being Jawan Kelly, and two more suspects that was with him. They initially was with the victim, Joshua Sims. They during the video footage, they were inside of one of the cells. At which time you see all the suspects, including Mr. Kelly. They walk out of the cell together, and during that time, when they were walking out the cell together, they wanted Mr. Joshua Sims to go to the phone. We have phones inside of the day room area. They walked him to the cell because they wanted him to call his mother.
Judge, I'm going to object. There's been no foundation for this particular evidence.
Okay.
Let me go back and ask Lieutenant Brock another question. So, Lieutenant, now, in your investigation, were you able to determine what happened from the video, or did you speak to some witnesses?
Spoke both video and witnesses.
Okay, which witnesses? Well, let me ask you this: were you able to speak to Mr. Sims about what happened?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, tell us what Mr. Sims told you what happened regarding the attack.
So Mr. Sims, he basically stated that three suspects was inside of the room with him. They all had shanks, homemade shanks knives with them at the time. They were inside of the cell. During that time, they told him that he needed to go to the phone and request $500 of payment that he needed to give to the suspects, or he will be stabbed.
Lieutenant, was he able to give you the names of who those suspects were who had the shanks?
He was not able to give the names, but he was able to identify all the subjects involved.
And can you tell us who he was able to identify?
Yes, ma'am. He was able to identify Jawan Kelly, Joel Gillum, Nicholas Hill, Michael Billingsley, Jaquante Tucker, and Reginald McCrimmon.
Taking him down for $500.
So I'm making sure I'm not getting confused. Initially, did you indicate that there were 3 suspects who came to him with the shanks and wanted him to get money?
That's correct.
Okay. Among those 3, were you able to determine who those 3 suspects were?
That's correct. And that would be Jawan Kelly, Michael Billingsley, and Jaquante Tucker.
What did Mr. Sims do after he was told to get $500 as payment or he would be stabbed?
After that, they all exited out of the cell together. They proceeded to walk towards the phone, and those 3 suspects who were with them sort of like spread it out near him, like in a, I don't want to say in a triangular format, but they stood close enough to him because they was explaining to Mr. Sims that if he tried anything, that they was going to get him right there in the day room.
Did Mr. Sims, did he make a phone call at that time?
No, ma'am, not at that time. There were other inmates using the phones at that time. So the suspects were talking to the other inmates and asking them, hey, y'all do a 3-way and let Mr. Sims, basically let Mr. Sims use the phone because he has to make a phone call.
Did that phone call eventually happen?
No, ma'am. Once Mr. Sims saw that the inmates were a little distracted, he came out of his jumpsuit, which put him on the day room floor as being naked, and he became naked to cause a distraction inside of the day room, because he was also trying to distract the inmates, and he was also trying to get the attention of the officer that was inside of the tower. We call it.
Okay, this one isn't funny, but I might have to clip. He became naked to cause a distraction.
Mikey.
Because that's funny.
Tower.
Did officers come to him in the day room when they saw that he was naked on the floor?
Not initially. I believe that officer at the time was working on some other things inside of the housing unit, so they could not initially get to Sims at that time. So during that time, while Mr. Sims was naked, he actually started fighting with one of the suspects who was the closest to him. I need to go back and just review the video to see what actual suspect he was fighting, but he was able to start fighting one of the suspects at that time.
Terrible.
Yes, Mike.
And what happened as a result of that fight?
So at that point, as the fight was ensuing, the inmate who he was actually fighting and the other 2 inmates who were there actually got a chance to back away and get back from Mr. Sims. And Mr. Sims, during that time, we had what we call an inmate worker who actually came to the door. And once the door was open, Mr. Sims had the opportunity to run out of the housing unit. So he ran outside outside of the housing unit, and that put him on the floor, what we call the catwalk. It's like an open. It's not inside of the housing unit, so he was able to get away from those suspects at that time. And when he
was Mr. Sims still naked during this time?
Still naked. Yes.
Okay, so he was able to get to this catwalk area, and did the suspects follow him?
They attempted to follow him, but he was able to shut the door. He shut the door to the cell, causing the cell door to be locked, so the inmates could not get out of the cell at that time.
So after this happened, were the suspects, were they eventually able to catch up to him? Well,
yes, ma'am. So at some point, the cell door became unlocked.
Door became
once
unlocked.
That cell door became unlocked, it has a buzzing sound. So it's like a hissing sound. So once you hear the cell door pop, it'll say. And once they heard it, they were really shocked by it. They all looked up and was like, "Is that the door?" And then they all ran out of the housing unit onto the catwalk where Mr. Sims was. At some point in the video, they were all standing over Mr. Sims, punching, kicking, stomping, and eventually COs arrived on the scene at that time, and Mr. Sims was stabbed several times while he was down on the catwalk.
Lieutenant Brock, now, I know earlier in the testimony we talked about 3 different suspects, and I know one of those was Mr. Kelly. When did Mr. Gillum get in the mix?
So Mr. Gillum comes into play to where the door popped open. He actually runs out with all of the rest of the suspects, and all those suspects I named earlier, they all ran out and began stomping, punching, and stabbing Mr. Sims on the catwalk. Now, I'm not sure that they all run together as like friends inside of the housing units. So that's probably why he came out there. But all of those inmates rushed out to the catwalk and began to attack Mr. Sims.
No, it
Were
isn't.
you able to see the actual attack on video?
They have a
Yes, ma'am.
or somebody underneath their belt.
And you have that in your little investigation, sir?
Were you able to determine at that time who had shanks with them, or used shanks on Mr. Sims?
At that time, I know Juwan Kelly, Michael Billingsley, and Jaquante Tucker, because prior to them being able to get out of the cell, they all had their hands like tucked inside of their Clayton County jumpsuit, and they just held it there the whole time. But once all of the suspects rushed over to Mr. Sims, it was hard. It's the way that there was angle. It was just hard to see who had what in their hand. But all of them were in the motion of punching or stabbing at that time.
Earlier in the testimony, when you talked about the 3 suspects who had initially approached Mr. Sims, and correct me if I'm wrong, I believe at that time you said that the 3 of them all they all possessed shanks. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. And they were concealing it inside of their jumpsuit. They were holding it inside like how my shirt is, like this. So they walked around like this the entire time.
Okay.
They're walking around like they're holding a shank.
Well, one of those persons was Juwan Kelly. Is that right?
That's correct.
When all of these inmates got on this catwalk, including Mr. Gillum, they all began to attack Mr. Sims all together?
That's correct.
Did Mr. Sims sustain a lot of injuries?
Yes, ma'am, he did.
Did he have to be transported to Grady?
It's the library book.
Yeah, I see it.
It's full of
I don't think that he was transported. He was taken to our infirmary unit, where he was, where the medical documentation said he received several puncture wounds to his torso and left arm area.
Mr. Sims was able to, in his when he identified some of the inmates, he was able to identify Mr. Kelly. And
after this nightmare, assuming he survived, which I think he did, now he's still in prison with all these guys he's named.
Yep.
Mr. Gillum as being part of the group who attacked him.
That's correct.
Did Mr. Gillum make any statements regarding what happened?
No, ma'am. He invoked his right not to speak to police.
Did Mr. Kelly make any statements regarding what happened?
Mr. Kelly did make a statement. He spoke to two investigators, Investigator Jackson and Investigator Swain.
And if you can recall, what statement did did he make?
He probably made the "if I talk to you, I'm dead."
So during that, they had conducted an interview with Mr. Kelly on January the 5th at approximately 8:40 p.m. And during the interview, they talked about Mr. Kelly speaking with a CO by the name of CO James. And initially, Kelly said that he wasn't having a conversation with the CO at that time. Because that was his thing, that he was not involved because, or something to that effect. But on video, at some point, I want to say that he was talking to one of the COs because before the attack on Mr. Sims, when they was threatening him to get the money, they said if he tried anything, that they had the CO on their side. And during the investigation, like I say, when Mr. Sims exited out of that housing unit, that door was shut, so the inmates could not get out. But at some point, that door was reopened from our control tower. For whatever reason it may have been, that door was reopened. So that just sort of put investigators, along with Mr. Sims, in the mind frame of, well, how did these inmates get out of that cell? So Investigator Swain and Investigator Jackson was questioning Kelly on the reason why he was actually talking to this particular CO. And, he denied having a conversation with her, but he just said that he spoke to her briefly and called her beautiful. He also explained to investigators that they had the wrong person, but he was willing to help investigators on whatever we needed at that time if we needed something.
Okay. Will all of this take place in Clayton County?
Yes, ma'am.
Meanwhile, the defendants look like they're having a good time with this. It's odd.
Thank you. No further questions.
Thank God I wasn't the only one noticing that, Mike.
Thank you.
I really do.
Did you have an opportunity to speak with that CO?
Two investigators, Investigator Jackson and Investigator Swain, they did have an opportunity to speak to the CO. And if I could recall, I'm not sure if Captain Hunter did or not, but I'll have to check on that. But I talked to.
What statements did that officer make?
I would have to get that file because it was an actual internal file. But if I can remember correctly, she stated that she was just busy at the time, and because there was another incident, a medical call going on at the same time this incident was occurring. So she just said that she was busy, and that's why she could not see everything that was going on with Mr. Sims at the time.
Right. The testimony was that Mr. Kelly talked to this specific officer. So did this specific officer make any statements about the conversation between that officer, and Mr. Kelly?
Now, I would have to go back and just and look. I can't remember if she made any statements about them having a conversation, but I think it was on video that either at some point they were or was not.
Your state's witness here, and you don't know what you investigated?
So is this the same officer that you all had some inclinations that may have opened the door, or is this the same officer that we're talking about?
That's correct.
Okay, and as of today, you don't know the extent of any conversations or any statements that she made?
Now, what I can do, if we could get a minute, I have to pull because it was a separate file. This is a criminal file that I have. Now, they did an internal file. If you could just give me a few minutes, I could check that for you about any statements that or conversation that occurred between Mr. Kelly and the CO.
I mean, if she made something that was exculpatory to Mr. Kelly, don't you think it would be a good idea to present that today, if anything?
I would think so.
Okay. So, but as of now, we can't confirm what she said.
Can't confirm, but in fact, let me
Well, hold tight, Lieutenant Brock. I mean, Judge, I'm trying to make sure I understand, because this certainly is not a discovery type of thing. When and if the case moves up to Superior Court, then Attorney Robinson would get any discovery in the case. But as far as trying to, I guess, get any and all statements that don't necessarily relate to probable cause, I would say certainly are not relevant at this stage for preliminary hearing. Well, Judge, my response to that would be that the state questioned Mr. Brock and alluded to the fact that there was a conversation that Mr. Kelly had with this officer that somewhat either corroborated his involvement in this. And so we didn't get into the extent of the conversation. Mr. Brock gave my client's version of what was said to this officer, but not this officer's version. And my question to him certainly was if there was anything exculpatory, and I say that phrase as in if there was a conversation with this officer and this officer can report back that my client had this involvement or no involvement, certainly part of it already has been considered as probable cause, because he's using that in his testimony here today. I'm not using it as a fishing expedition, but the officer was able to testify as to what my client's statement was, but cannot testify as to what this particular officer's statement is in regarding to what his involvement is in this case.
From my recollection and notes, Officer Brock indicated from the video that Mr. Kelly and the others were seen actually beating, stabbing, and that Mr. Kelly had his hand in his jumpsuit as if he had a shank in it. So the testimony, that was the testimony that Officer Brock said that he saw with his eyes from the video itself.
All right, Your Honor, I'll focus my redirect to that then. Yes, Judge. All right, so Mr. Brock, were any weapons retrieved from Mr. Kelly's person?
To the best of my knowledge, I would have to check the evidence log, but I can't recall if anything was retrieved on his person at that time, because it took correctional officers, several minutes or however long it took them to get down to the housing unit. So a lot of times, like I say, they dispose of things all the time or hide them. So I can't recall to say something was recovered on his person at that time.
All right. Was there anything recovered at any point in time from Mr. Kelly?
I would have to check the evidence log and see what was all logged in.
Sounds like
all right. So is it your testimony here today that you were able to visibly see and identify on the video Mr. Kelly stabbing Mr. Sims?
It's my testimony today that Mr. Kelly, along with two other suspects, had threatened Mr. Sims by telling him that they were going to stab him, at which time Mr. Kelly and those two suspects walked around on video in the day room with their hands tucked inside of their Clayton County issue jumpsuit. At some point when things...
I get that. You're giving me a narrative. My question was, did you see him on video stabbing Mr. Sims? That's all. Yes or no?
During the pileup, it was several inmates on top, and they were all punching or stabbing, however you want to say that.
All right. So did Mr. Sims say that Mr. Kelly stabbed him?
Yes, all of the inmates who were on top of him.
So Mr. Kelly gave a statement to you, Mr. Sims gave a statement to you in which he said that Mr. Kelly stabbed him.
Yes, all of the inmates stabbed him. Mr. Kelly and...
All right. Were you able to view any video footage prior to the video footage of the fight?
Yes, ma'am.
And what did you see?
They're just walking around in the day room, sitting down, typically, just doing inmate stuff, like they'll go in and out of cells and stuff like that.
Mr. Sims was doing the same thing?
At some point, he was just walking around as well when they approached him, and that's how they ended up inside of the cell. What it is that, when they approach an inmate or inmates, they want them to come inside of the cell to have a conversation, which that conversation was, once they were inside of the cell, they wanted Joshua Sims to go to the phone to request money so he could pay them.
Okay. My last question to you is, did you observe any, did Mr. Sims tell you that he had previously attacked Mr. Kelly in the past?
No, not to my knowledge.
Okay. Did you observe any video footage of Mr. Sims punching Mr. Kelly immediately before this happened?
No, not to my knowledge. Neither Mr. Kelly or neither Mr. Sims ever brought that to my attention.
All right. Thank you, sir.
All right, Ms. Toles?
Yes, you said Lieutenant Brock?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You're with Internal Affairs?
That's correct. And I'm over internal affairs and CID.
You're over Internal Affairs and CID. Okay. So there's security cameras in this particular area of the jail, correct?
Yes, sir.
And there's also, I guess, deputies or court staff also watching the inmates?
That's correct.
Okay. So you mentioned that initially that Mr. Sims was walking around and then two inmates approached him aggressively demanding money, correct?
That's correct. It was possibly three of them.
Three people?
Yes, sir.
Okay. No intervention by law enforcement at that point with three inmates approaching one person?
No, sir. Not at that time.
Okay. Now, did that take place by the cells, or was that in the day area where the tables are?
So this will be during the day room. What it is that we have a day room area, and they talked to Mr. Sims briefly, and then they went inside the cell, and then that's when the demand for money was made to Mr. Sims.
Okay, so Mr. Sims then walks out of the cell, takes off his clothes, correct?
He would take off his clothes within minutes. So once they exit out of the cell, they had shanks on them at that time. They all come out of this cell with Mr. Sims. These three suspects.
Who are the three suspects with the shanks at this point?
So at this point, it's going to be Jawan Kelly,
okay,
Michael Billingsley,
okay,
and Jaquante Tucker.
Okay. All right. They've got shanks. You said they're putting it into their coats like they're hiding it, correct?
That's correct.
That's a common way for people to hide shanks, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So somebody's holding they got their hand inside their prison uniform, and there's still no police intervention even at this point, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. So then Mr. Sims starts to take off his clothes. The guy to get attention of the guards, the people, whoever's watching his cameras or anything. He's trying to get the attention of people, right?
That's correct.
Does he get fully naked? Does he take the entire clothes on?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And so even after that, there's nobody coming to help Mr. Sims.
That's correct.
Is there any explanation for that?
Now, so one thing is, once he came fully undressed, he's a naked person at that time because he's trying to distract these inmates, and he's also
so earnestly, he's a naked person at that time.
Yes.
trying to get the attention of the CO at the time. During that time, there was a medical call, according to the
That's on the recording, guys.
Inmate out on a stretcher. So she claimed that she was, focusing on that as well. So she was missing this incident going on with Mr. Sims. Now, during this time,
She missed a naked man wandering around the cell. She missed that.
that's according to what she's saying. But also, it plays into the fact that Mr. Joshua Sims, while these inmates were trying to force him to give money, they're telling him if he does something stupid, that they were going to stab him, and that they had the CO on his side. So it plays into the fact that, that if she did not see it or did see it, the reason is why isn't she not seeing it? That's a good question. Because, according to some of the inmates, the statement that they made to Mr. Sims is that they were receiving that type of protection.
Where was Mr. Gilliam when all this was taking place after Mr. Sims took off his clothes naked? Where's Mr. Gilliam at?
Now, if I could recall, and I have to go back and watch the video, at this time, Mr. Gilliam was either not inside of the day room or he was, but he was not a part of that initial conflict.
He was not, or he was. So in other words, he was somewhere in the universe.
Mr. Gilliam was not a part of that conflict. Mr. Gilliam will get inside of the conflict once Mr. Sims is outside of the dorm on the catwalk. Now he's away from them. The door's shut. He's outside naked. He's by himself. Nobody could get to him. Everything is good. When that door pops, they hear the sound of the and they realize the door popped, and they all rush out of the door.
So are you testifying that Mr. Gilliam was already inside the cell?
Yes, he gets on. He gets out into the day room at some point.
I'm saying before the cell popped, Mr. Gilliam was already in the cell. He's in the cell to be locked inside the cell.
No. At this point, because all of this is going on, within minutes of itself. So after Mr. Sims is naked inside of the housing unit,
Okay.
Mr. Sims is exiting out of the housing unit.
Okay.
During this time, Gilliam and Dwan Kelly, they're all inside of the housing units. So, like, this room is the housing unit.
Okay.
But out of this closet, that's the cell. That's how it is. So they're all out in the day room right now.
Okay.
While Mr. Sims is outside with the door locked. You see what I'm saying? So they're separate.
So how long was the door locked?
Approximately just maybe a few minutes. I can say maybe 1 to 5 minutes maybe in between that time frame. The door was locked. And then once they heard the door pop, that's when because it has a hissing sound. And when they said, they all like, do we hear that? And they all,
she's
when the door
sleeping
was
on the
locked,
dog's
they
bed.
all rushed out the door
She's out.
onto the catwalk where Mr. Sims is still on the catwalk naked.
With permanent
And then
outer,
that's when
she's
they all
out.
piled on top of him and started attacking him.
She's been out for
you never saw
about 10
a
minutes.
shank in Mr. Gilliam's hand, correct?
Not at that time.
And Mr. Gilliam was never actually caught with a shank, correct?
Now I have to check the evidence log, but not that I'm aware of. I don't, because by the time we get there, correctional officers
9 years later.
mainly retrieve items if they can find them. But it took.
We take our sweet time. That way we make sure they can get rid of their
Okay,
shit.
so on the video, you said it was about five guys jumping one guy, correct?
Wait, the Five Guys restaurant?
So certainly you all saw that.
Or did the Five Guys go to Five Below?
Yes, sir.
Was there an alarm? Was there any kind of, anything at that point in time?
Not so much of an alarm. At some point, I'm assuming that the CO called for some type of help over the radio, saying that it was a fight on side of the catwalk. And at some point after the stabbing was complete and the beating was complete, before the COs even got to the housing unit, all of those suspects ran back into the dorm room.
How long did the beating take place?
Anywhere from 3 to 5 minutes, maybe.
And so to your knowledge, whenever the deputies or whatever team is assigned to deal with this whole situation, did they recover any knives from anyone?
I can't recall if they recovered any knives at this time, but a lot of times it's not uncommon for them not to recover anything, because by the time they get to the housing units, either the shanks is going to be disposed of or hidden or something to that effect. Sometimes we get it and sometimes we can't.
All right, but when you watched the video, you did not see Mr. Gilliam stabbing anyone, correct?
Now, when I watch the video, I just see all the suspects punching or striking Mr. Sims, and after all of this is completed, Mr. Sims came out with several stab wounds because it was a pile up on top of him.
So,
Yes, defense.
I have no further questions.
Smart man.
Can you redirect?
Judge, I have no additional questions. The state rep.
All right. Any evidence on behalf of Mr. Kelly?
No, Judge.
All right. Any evidence on behalf of Mr. Gilliam?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Based on the evidence and testimony that I've heard, I find sufficient probable cause to both Mr. Kelly and Mr. Gilliam. These charges will be bound over to Superior Court.
So
Thank you,
you're
Judge.
not getting out of here.
That's the last one. May Lieutenant Brock be excused?
Yes.
Thank you, Lieutenant.
You're welcome. Thank you, Your Honor.
And thank you, Mike. I am not even going to sit around and say I do not like naked guys in jail. But with that, will bring the afternoon to a close. Come on back tonight for some soft fun. Till then, thanks for watching from day one. Have a great afternoon, everyone.